Hello, everyone. All right, it looks like everything's working. Just need to get everything lined up. Microphone set. And there we are. Welcome to the pre-show, folks. We are just getting started here. As usual, I like to do a little bit of pre-show time to make sure the stream's working correctly, but also gives an opportunity for us to interact and chat if you've got any questions. And of course, as always, we all get to enjoy our favorite Saturday morning coffee. I hope you've got yours. We got plenty of stuff to cover today. Lots of data like we usually do. Let's see here. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to chime in. It would be my pleasure. Let's see here. Let's see if we're up on YouTube. Yes, we are. Let's see if we're up on X. As usual, the link doesn't seem to be working, but if you go to my page, it is right there. Yeah, so that's working. And then LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a weird one. And there we go. There we go. We're all set. Outstanding. Okay. So for those of you who are new, welcome to the Coffee and Real Estate live chat for December of 2024. This is an opportunity for us to sort of look back on what's been happening over the past month. So we look at the numbers for November, see what we've learned from those. Interesting numbers this time around where we deviated quite a bit. And for those of you who checked in last week or last month, you know that we had some weird deviations last month when we did the November show and covered October. Increases in activity that were very interesting to see for that time of year, considering historically we normally see the market start to wind down. So that was kind of interesting. Now, if you've got any questions, feel free to share them. What'll happen is on some platforms, you would not see my reply if I typed it in to the comments. But you will always hear me, obviously, answer it during the stream. And then on the screen, you'll actually see a scroll of, I think the only ones you'll see are ones from YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. But those are LinkedIn and X are read-only, meaning I can only, if I type text back, it won't do anything in the chat. But again, that won't matter because we're talking about it, right? I'm going to be mentioning the question and the answer in the stream, so it'll benefit. And for those of you who have been kind enough to participate in the past, ask questions, those types of things, I encourage you to ask them in the context of the live stream, just so that everyone can hear the answer. I love that folks reach out to me afterwards, and I realize some of you don't listen to it on Saturday morning. I'm sure some of you are far too busy to spend an hour with me on your Saturday morning. So you check out the stream later in the week, and that's great. Please continue to do that. But if you can make it to the live stream and share your questions there, it would work out better, because if in an email or a phone call, only you benefit from the answer. If we do it during the stream, then everybody involved benefits from the answer. So, and I like to help as many people as I can. We've got the usual stuff, like the news and whatnot, to cover. I've also got, the heck is that? I've also got my Reventure app. This is something I've been showing you now for a few months that gives us really interesting data, so we can take a look at what's happening in various zip codes, various metro areas, states, whatever, and get a feeling for what's going on, whether it's home values or growth or whether or not they're overvalued. It's really kind of a cool tool, and it'll let me pull up data for the entire country. So feel free. We can have chats about that if you like. We're going to get started on the show here in just about 9.5 minutes. So if you've got any questions, real estate or not real estate related, please feel free. The pre-show is the time to do it. I had a really weird night last night, and not for good reasons. I just couldn't get to sleep. I can't figure out why. I don't know what would have changed that would have made it so difficult to go to sleep last night. But just ended up reading, and almost till the time I ended up falling asleep for maybe a couple hours and then getting back up this morning. I don't know what everyone else has planned for the weekend. It's when I looked out there real quick, I didn't have to go out or do anything before the show this morning. Looked a little cloudy. I do have a couple of things I want to do. And in fact, one thing I have to do is go take a look at some undeveloped property for a client. And it reminds me of how much I keep telling myself I need to get myself a four-wheel drive. I've got myself just a really, efficient four-door sedan, but it's not four-wheel drive. And after looking at the photos of some of the lots I need to go look at today, there was one that commented that four-wheel drive, not mandatory, but strongly recommended. So I'm not sure how my car will survive that one, but we'll see. And then my son is back from law school. He's on his Christmas break for law school. And we were just chatting about what cars I was looking at. And he goes, Dad, if it's anything more than a two-door sports car at this stage in your life, you shouldn't buy it. So at least I'm getting feedback from the younger generation on what I should be buying, because I'm very much just a functional guy, right? I don't like I like stuff that I can get and keep for a long time and get my money's worth out of it. So I end up, sometimes I'll get drawn to like the sexier version of the thing, but I'm also very data driven. So then I'll always end up leaning back into, okay, well, this one's more reliable and this one suits more purposes, right? So I'm looking for something that'll satisfy that four-wheel drive thing, but also recognize that I spend 90% of my time, 99% of my time not off-roading. And I don't want to buy a car just to go look at lots. I mean, granted, I've been doing it a lot more lately. For whatever reason, I've been getting a lot more clients that are really interested in lots. And I've been lucky in the majority of the ones I've been involved with to help clients buy have been bordered or real street. So the one of the several today does not border a real street. It's a weird little dirt road thing, and that road is apparently the problem. But we'll see. I'm leaning into. I know 4Runner is like the absolutely everybody gets one car for four-wheel driving. But I got to admit, I kind of like the Hondas, the Passports and the Pilots. They're all-wheel drive, but they get better gas mileage. Their average cost per repair is lower. They're just the not as well known, or at least not as celebrated brand as Toyota is for that stuff. I really kind of liked I went and test drove a Tundra, but they're having so many problems with that engine from 2022 on that it makes it something I'm not sure I'm willing to throw the dice on. But from an interior and just comfort standpoint, it was a great car. And 4Runners are great. I drove a 4Runner to take my kiddo to Texas for law school, so I'm very familiar with those. And yeah, they're a great car, but they're also hyped. There are a lot of people who want to buy them because they're the hyped car. So I think given what you get, they tend in the used market, because I usually don't buy a brand new except for on rare occasions, but if you go up onto various websites and look up the cars that fit your needs, and for me, I'm doing the blanket search of four-wheel drive, kind of stuff. For what you get, mileage, age, all those types of things, the 4Runners tend to be a little bit higher priced. So, and I think it's just a demand thing, right? Just like in real estate, it's a supply and demand thing. All right, we've got just under 5 minutes before we kick off the official show. I'd like to welcome anyone who's chosen to join us early. I can see that on a couple of platforms. I've got a few folks that are watching. Welcome to it. My name is Robert Whitelaw. If you don't know that already, I'm a licensed real estate broker and realtor here in the Silicon Valley area of California, the South Bay. Been doing this since 1988, so a very long time. And this is my monthly Coffee and Real Estate live chat where we talk about real estate numbers from the last month and the most recent real estate news to help us just make good decisions in the world of real estate, or just to I know I have a few people who've been listening to me on these and also my podcast since 2007, which obviously, and I apologize to my podcast listeners. I realize there has not been a podcast since April or March, and I do apologize for that. You know, I took this year easy. There's a lot of balls in the air, so I've sort of taken a step back and relaxed. I've been doing things that I've reclaimed some personal time to recharge batteries and do some other things and learn some other things. I wanted to go learn a few skills, and I feel like it's been a good year for that. It's been a weird year for other things, but I guess I sort of at first that was just sort of, I'm going to take the next month and just really sort of step back, take stock, assess, and it turned into a much more long-term thing. It ended up resulting in tons of road trips. Whether it was to Nevada, Idaho, Utah, Texas. Texas was obviously for moving the kiddo, but I turned that into sort of a road trip. And the road trip back from that was much more of an extended real estate thing where I was looking at Arizona and Utah and those kinds of areas. So it's been a great year, though. And I hope the year for you has been at least as good as it has been for me. Let's see, we're a little under 3 minutes away from starting officially. I've got everything up, so I should be seeing your comments when they come through. So feel free to send along any comments or questions that you have, and I'll be happy to try to answer them for you as we're working through this stuff. It looks like the stream is super stable today. That's good to see. Where did my window go? It went away. There it is. Yeah, that's an interesting that's happening in my neighborhood here in Morgan Hill, where there's the battle of the internet providers, where you've got the fiber optic guys trying to fight with Spectrum, who's been kind of the classic guys in our area for a super long time, and they just keep upping my bandwidth to try to keep my business, because I've definitely made a few calls about getting fiber to my house. And ever since then, two things have happened. One, I've gotten better bandwidth, but two, my stability of my connection is much better. I don't get any of these weird drops that were happening before. So I don't know. Maybe they've invested in infrastructure a little bit. All right, folks, we're just a minute and a half away. I hope you've got all your Christmas shopping done. I realize we're less than a week away from Christmas. I'm one of those guys that tends to finish my Christmas shopping like a month before. And today it's so easy. I did most of it online. I think there was one gift that I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for online, which I realize is almost an impossible thing to say. But it was a very custom thing, so I was able to track it down locally from somebody who would actually make it for me, but that was over a month ago. So, and it's all done. It's sitting in the garage hidden. All right. Is there anything else super interesting happening that would be good that's not necessarily real estate? I don't think so. But we'll talk about all the latest data plus whatever you guys want to talk about as soon as we kick it off here for real. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to it. It is 10 a.m. on the third Saturday of the month. And of course, we all know what that means. It's time for Coffee and Real Estate live chat with me, Robert Whitelaw, licensed real estate broker right here in Silicon Valley, here to help you with all your real estate needs, buying, selling, investing. I've been doing this a super long time. I was first licensed as a real estate agent in 1988 and have been kicking around ever since with a variety of different, very well-known offices. Started my own office as a broker in the early part of the 2000s, and have really never looked back. Feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at soldbyrobert.com. And there's a variety of ways to reach out there. You can either just send a message through that, or you can give me a phone call. Happy to help you with whatever real estate needs you might have. All right. So now that we are here and ready to go, don't forget that you can comment to me or ask questions to me via the chat. So check that out. And the places where I will see those are Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. So in all of those places, if you make a chat and enter a comment, I should see it. And it should, with the exception of Facebook, it'll also show up here on the screen, like right there. Right there. You see it? Is it right there? You should be able to see it. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what's happening with the data. Now, one thing to remember is this is for the month of November, so this isn't December numbers. We won't review December numbers until January. But let's just get these going here and see if we can't get a handle on things. All right, so as we always do, we're starting off with the total homes on the market. So think about this as, if you're a seller, it's the competition. How many homes aside from yours were on the market? If you're a buyer, it's how many homes did you have to choose from? And what's interesting is Santa Clara County had a 0% change from last year. And I double checked that number. It is accurate. Last year it was 1,151. This year in November it was 1,155. So statistically no change. So the exact same level of inventory from last year. And in general, I mean, remember, starting from the county level and going all the way down to Gilroy, the sample size drops. So there'll be a little bit more variation there. But all in all, we've seen a pretty flat performance in terms of total number of homes in inventory. I think that's a little bit more interesting when we look at homes that were listed. But for now, in Santa Clara County, that number is a 0% change from last year. So very on par in terms of just what is the supply, how many homes are out there for sale. In San Jose, the number was 537 last year in November. This year in November, it's 567. That was a 6% increase from the same time last year. And again, remember, this is all year-to-year comparisons. This isn't comparing November to October. From a standpoint of getting a handle on how much markets have changed, it doesn't make any sense to do month-to-month checks. We do that later so we can see what trends are over time. But if you're trying to figure out how are we doing compared to because we want to get rid of those market influences that are just time-based, right? Because selling a house in November is going to be very different from June. Two completely different markets are happening. So that way we keep the focus on the same time of year, looking back over our shoulder. All right. Morgan Hill was up 13%, 54 homes on the market last year, 61 homes on the market this year. Gilroy, a 6% increase, 67 homes on the market last year, 71 homes this year. If we take a look now at the total number of new listings, and this represents homes that were actually added on the market. So somebody signed a listing agreement that said we're going to go on the market on such and such a date, and that date happened in November of 2024. And then we're also comparing it to the same thing for last year. So in Santa Clara County, that number was up 7% from the same time last year. 757 homes were listed last year. 812 homes were listed this year. In San Jose, it was 386 homes last year, 450 homes this year for a 17% increase. In Morgan Hill, the number is actually down. It was 39 homes last year, 30 homes this year for a 23% decline. And in Gilroy, again, another decline of 26%, 35 homes last year, 26 homes this year. Which and remember, we're comparing the same month. So it's interesting to see that we're seeing fewer people going on the market. There was a lot of talk about profit taking. In other words, homeowners who were saying, you know what, we feel like we're kind of at a point where the market's at a peak. Optimism has sort of turned a little bit, though. So folks who were thinking, and this I think indicates this to some degree, folks who were thinking, wow, you know what, the market's likely to go into decline, we're likely to see home values drop, were thinking about profit taking and putting their home on the market to take advantage of that. And now we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that push on the part of sellers to get their homes on the market, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I have seen some homes go on. In my 2 cents, I would not list your home in November or December. I don't think that strategy does not get you the highest bang for the buck. If you can wait, I would suggest late January or February. In my local market, there are some markets where that doesn't make sense. Listing in January or February doesn't either. But you don't want your listing to appear to have sort of stagnated on the market for too long. So if you're really trying to time your actions super well, I know that over the past few years, my listing a home in January, February, and March has tended to give pretty amazing results. We had some headwinds in early 2024 with different things happening, whether it was a big jump in interest rates or those kinds of things. But in terms of timing it, in terms of trying to get it so you get the biggest bang for the buck and get that multiple offer scenario, which we did end up getting last time, despite the fact we had some headwinds, we got over asking price. If you want to get that over asking price offer, you're going to want to tend to list in January, February, March in my local market. Consult with me, have a conversation with me, let me know where your home is, and I can tell you if that window is different in your local market. But up here in some of the markets I serve here in my local town of Morgan Hill, that's definitely the case. All right. Next, let's take a look at total number of homes sold. We can see that in Santa Clara County, we have sold a lot more homes than last year. And remember, inventory is the same. So that indicates we sold a lot of homes that we listed in that month, which is true. If you remember last month's show, we talked about an interesting increase in the number of pending sales. A pending sale means an offer has been accepted by a seller to sell the home. And that usually means that home will come up as sold within the next 30 to 45 days. I think this is a representation of that. So 785 homes were sold last year in November of 2023. November of 2024, 998 homes for an increase of 27%. So good growth from year to year. In terms of San Jose, again, on par, 23% increase, 407 homes last year, 501 homes this year. In Morgan Hill, California, 30 homes last year, 40 homes this year for a 33% increase. And in Gilroy, 30 homes last year, 41 homes this year for a 37% increase. Now, for those of you who've been watching this show for a while, you know that for a very long time, I've been sort of waving the Gilroy flag. And I still continue to think that Gilroy is a great opportunity for folks who still need to commute to Silicon Valley and consider Gilroy the absolute farthest they're willing to go to do that. And that seems to be a thing, right? I have an awful lot of clients who work at an awful lot of different big, tech companies up in Silicon Valley, whether it's in Sunnyvale or Mountain View or San Jose or wherever. And in speaking with them, initially they all want to buy right there. And once they look at what they get and the bang for the buck, they sort of go, okay, well, we'll consider Morgan Hill. Well, Morgan Hill isn't a price break. You get great home and you get great neighborhoods. And it's not this tight urban crush that you tend to get in San Jose. But you're not saving a ton of money. Gilroy, you're getting the same amount of house you were hoping for less money. So I think it represents a great opportunity, and I can absolutely help you with Gilroy. I know the markets where you're going to want to focus in terms of settling down and getting that new home. All right, next, let's go ahead and take a look at months of inventory. Months of inventory is this idea that if we freeze the total inventory and freeze the total number of homes that sell in a given month, and just use those, if those two numbers stayed the same, how long would it take to sell off every home that's currently on the market? And we can see, and the lower this number is, the more of a seller's market that it is, right? So a year ago, in November of 2023, in Santa Clara County, this was at 1.5. So it would take 1.5 months to sell off everything if the inventory and sales numbers stayed the same. This year, it's 1.2. So it's a 20% decrease, which indicates a leaning into buyers change in the market, which is interesting because if you remember the last couple, we were seeing this increasing. We were seeing this leaning more towards buyers. So that's sort of an interesting change. We're going to look at some numbers here in a minute in terms of average percent over or under asking price, and see if that has resulted in continuing dramatic increases in over asking price sales. But for right now, let's just cover this. So now San Jose also saw a change in the same direction. 1.3 months last year, 1.1 months this year, for a 15% decline. And Morgan Hill, 1.8 months last year, 1.5 months this year, for a 17% decrease. And Gilroy saw a 23% decrease of 2.2 months last year, 1.7 months this year. So to calibrate you, at what point is the line where it changes, where this number changes from being indicating a buyer's market to indicating a seller's market, and vice versa? So right now we're obviously in a seller's market. The lower the number is, the more of a seller's market it is. Nationally, it's considered that about 4.5 to 5.5 weeks is considered a balanced market. So we're nowhere even near a balanced market, still leaning way into sellers. And on average, this is true. But for my buyers out there, I need you to also consider that our market is loaded with micro markets, meaning some of this data doesn't even come close to representing what's really happening on the ground in some of these smaller markets, where in some areas, this number is much more aligned for sellers, and in some other areas, it's much more aligned for buyers. So being calibrated to that as you start your search, if you're starting your search, would be good. And again, reach out to me if you'd like some help getting going with that. Next, let's go ahead and talk about homes pending or contingent. This is what I was referring to earlier. This is the number of homes that went into contract, meaning that a seller... before we do that, before we jump to let me just talk about homes sold here for a minute. One of the things I like to also track for homes sold is, did we add homes to the market or did we subtract them? In other words, did we sell more homes than we listed, right? So in every market, we end this, and this is new for this month. I don't think this happened last month. I know it didn't happen the month before. I know it didn't happen for the longest time. But for instance, if we recall the numbers from new listings, we had 812 homes listed in Santa Clara County, but we sold 998, right? So well over 100, almost 200 more than we listed. So we not only did we sell everything that was listed in that month, not just numerically, right? Not home for home. But then we also sold homes dipping into the existing inventory. That is very unusual for the winter. That is very unusual for November to sell more homes than you list. Same thing happened in San Jose. We sold 501 homes, but we listed 450. In Morgan Hill, we sold 40 homes, but we listed 30. In Gilroy, we sold 41 homes, but listed only 26. So, we added 180. We took 186 homes off of inventory in the county. We took 51 homes off the market in San Jose, or reduced the overall inventory by 51 homes. And in Morgan Hill, we reduced overall inventory by 10 homes, and in Gilroy, we reduced overall inventory by 15 homes. So this is one of those winters where we are absolutely selling off properties that normally we don't see this happen till January or February, once the new year has come and gone and the new market has begun. So this is very unusual. And I want to call this out because it is so unusual. It does not tend to happen. And it indicates a higher level of interest on the part of buyers than we would normally expect. So given the time of year, given what numbers were indicating prior to this happening, I wouldn't have guessed this was going to happen, but it's definitely something interesting to keep track of. All right, so pending and contingent. Now, keep in mind, this is a leading indicator number. This gives us insights into how many sold homes we're likely to see next month or the month after it. Because as I said, once you've got an agreed upon contract, it's usually 30 to 45 days before it closes escrow, and close escrow equals sold. So once that happens, that home will be listed as sold, and this number will give us some idea of where it's going to be. Now, we can see that in all cases, we have more homes that are pending, that went pending in November of this year than last year. And in Santa Clara County, that was 733 homes last year, 882 homes this year, for a 20% increase. In San Jose, it was a 23% increase, with 391 homes last year and 480 homes this year. In Morgan Hill, 31 homes last year, 34 homes this year for a 10% increase. And in Gilroy, it was 26 homes last year, 29 homes this year for a 12% increase. So we should see, in comparing to last year, we should see more homes ultimately show up as sold in December and perhaps early January. This number, though, is not as high, I believe, as it was in October. So we'll see, but we'll be able to look. One of the slides coming up here is going to be one that just looks straight back month over month, and we can see what the trend is and see if we can't figure out what that's going to equal for the coming months. Okay. So that takes care of pending. Let's take a look at original list price. And original list price, and I know I say this every time I do it, is one that I tend to do that nobody else does. I've never seen another person who does any of this kind of data analysis discuss original list price. So let me tell you what original list price is. When the real estate person sat down with a homeowner who wanted to sell their home and decided on what price they were going to offer on the multiple listing service or out on Trulia and Redfin and Zillow and all those places, this is the original number. So this is before they raised the price. This is before they lowered the price. And the reason why I like to share it is because it lets us get a little bit of a glimpse into the expectations of sellers. Where were sellers' heads at when they listed their home? Because this is their expectation. This is what they were shooting for. They thought this would be a number that would be agreeable enough to buyers to pay it and is the number they wanted to get as a seller, right? So that's a pretty big mental nugget that is good to understand on the part of sellers. What's interesting here is some very interesting diversion. So number one is Santa Clara County, only a 0.5% increase in the same time last year. That may be the smallest increase in expectations year on year that I've seen in a long time. It indicates sellers aren't thinking that their home is worth a ton. And remember, we've had months where we've done this, where this was 10%, 15%, where sellers on average in the county thought their home was worth way more than it was the year before. And I think this also reflects the idea that we've seen an awful lot of free-flowing news about the market and how things are slowing, et cetera, et cetera. So last year it was 1,840,980. This year it's 1,850,086 as the original asking price on average in Santa Clara County. In San Jose, this number was up 0.8%, $1,401,195 last year, $1,412,147 this year. Check out Morgan Hill. Now, this also represents, now remember, it's a smaller sample size. So as we move to the right on these numbers and the sample size of homes gets smaller, and that's what happens, right? You have thousands of homes that sell in Santa Clara County or get listed in Santa Clara County. You have hundreds that get listed in San Jose. You have dozens in Morgan Hill and dozens in Gilroy with slightly smaller numbers in Gilroy. So one home could really throw this off. And I try to be aware of that, so I normalize for it. In this case, it's just homes that are listing at a higher price point. There seems to be a little bit more activity on the part of sellers in the Morgan Hill community for homes at a higher price range, and that just seems to be the way it's going. And this number reflects that, so it's not crazy. Morgan Hill was up 15.3%. Last year it was $1,592,885 was the average original list price. This year it's $1,836,980. And again, in the neighborhoods where some of these are, we've got price bracketing where once a home is over a certain amount of money, the amount of interest it's going to get severely drops. It's very interesting. It's usually a different number in different communities. But right now in Morgan Hill, anything over about 1.3 to 1.4 million falls into this tougher category where there's less activity, where it's a little bit tougher to get attention for the property. Folks are trying to keep those prices lower in terms of buyer goals. And it's interesting to notice that. And what's really sometimes there's bracket inversion, which was a very weird thing back in 2012, 13, 14, where you'd see a price bracket, say between $850,000 and $950,000, where there's this peak or a super big dip in activity, but then that activity level goes up over $1 million. And we had that happen in some neighborhoods where literally you wanted to price your home higher because there were people who were doing, apparently, only looking at homes over $1 million. So calibrate yourself to that, because sometimes that weirdness goes on. All right, anyway, average original lowest price, last one we covered here was Morgan Hill. Gilroy, $1,288,313 last year, up 19% to $1,533,559. And again, keep in mind, this isn't what homes sold for. This is what sellers would like to sell it for. It's their list price. It's the sticker they put on their house that said, buy me for, and then a number, right? And again, one of the reasons why I think Gilroy is so attractive is this. Now you'll notice that expectations in Gilroy are even higher than they are in San Jose right now. However, you should also note that some of the homes in Gilroy we're talking about here are ones that there's acreage involved, much larger lot sizes. And again, it's a smaller sample size, and this one is put off a little bit because we had one or two homes that were in this higher range. If you're not familiar with the Gilroy area, in the northwest area, there are literally what most people refer to as gentlemen's estates, which are typically 5-acre or more properties. Beautiful homes, most of them spec custom homes. Then you've got the area that's northeast Gilroy, in northwest Gilroy, near Christopher High School. Super desirable for families because Christopher High School is really the best high school in the South Valley. And homes go for there for a reasonable amount of money that I think is closer to this below $1.5 million mark. But again, represents an opportunity for folks to not be in the crush of urban San Jose and be able to live in Gilroy and enjoy some of the more nature-focused living environments that you're going to get in that area. Okay, next. Let's talk about actual sales prices. This is what homes actually sold for. So we're going to take a second here to look at this and then see if people made more or less than their expectations. Was it above expectations or below expectations? So let's take a look. Now, in Santa Clara County overall, last year homes on average sold for $1,721,349. This year they sold for $1,939,917, which is a 12.7% increase. Now remember, expectations only increased by 0.5% in Santa Clara County in November, but actual performance in those numbers is up over 10%, 12.7%. So what did this represent? Expectations versus reality. Well, reality was that they ended up making about $89,831 over what they expected to. If you just compare in the month of November what folks listed their home for versus what homes sold for, sellers tended to get that much over asking price on average. In San Jose, last year, homes sold for, on average, $1,361,173, and in November of 2024, sold for $1,575,865 for a 15.8% increase. Morgan Hill, very interesting deviation here. Well, and let's talk about San Jose more here about comparing it to expectations. So San Jose folks got way above expectations. As you remember, about $1.4 million was what the average original list price was. Over $1.5 million, as we can see here, is what homes were selling for, which netted them a total on average of $163,718 above expectations for the month of November. So a big number, and the biggest number that we're going to see here in terms of over expectations. Below expectations, and the remaining two communities that we're looking at, Morgan Hill, it was down 2.2%. So overall, just the average sales price is down. $1,256,400 last year, $1,229,057 this year. And I think that represents an interesting value proposition. So if I were a buyer, and if I had a client who was a buyer in Morgan Hill, which I do, this is a great number for me. I can show statistically that price sales are down. The average sales price is down in Morgan Hill from the same time last year. So when I'm making an offer, this is something I can bring up as stats to bolster a aggressive offer on a house that might be below asking price. In terms of how much above or below expectations were they? Well, it was quite a bit below expectations. As if you'll remember, Morgan Hill's average list price was $1.8 million plus. Now it's 1.2 million. So that's $607,923 below expectations for November. Something interesting to keep in mind. Now, as we head into Gilroy, we can see a nice increase of 14.7%, 1,075,000 last year, 1,232,000 this year. But that still represents a loss from expectations, where folks in Gilroy were expecting on average 1.5 million plus. So versus expectations, folks in Gilroy were getting $300,651 below expectations in November. So an interesting variety here in terms of variations from the overall county to San Jose, which is the biggest market in Santa Clara County, to Morgan Hill and Gilroy, which are some smaller communities within the county. All right, next. Percent over or under asking price. Santa Clara County, and these are numbers that really surprised me. My expectation when we were back a few months ago was that we would see this number steadily dropping, and I honestly thought we would be below 100% in many areas by now, that we would see this happen by Christmas time. But that hasn't happened. So 103.2%, which means on average, a year ago in November in Santa Clara County, homes sold for 3.2% over asking price. The number went up in November of 2024 to 104% for a basic 4% over asking price sales price. San Jose also up 0.8, 102.9 last year, 103.7 this year. Morgan Hill is up 2.2%. On average, last year at this time, homes were selling for 99.1% of asking price. Very, very healthy number for November. Made sense. Not this year. It's definitely up at being 1.3% over asking price. Gilroy last year, just a hair over asking price on average at 100.3. Now we've got a 2.1% net increase of up to 102.4. So now homes in Gilroy are getting 2.4% over asking price on average. And again, as we look at this, don't think to yourself, well, man, if I want to buy a house in Santa Clara County, I need to come up with 4% over asking price. As I said, submarkets are the thing. Santa Clara County is a huge, huge area. Same goes for San Jose. Huge, huge area. There are some neighborhoods where this isn't the case, where you're absolutely able to get homes for below asking price. I'd say that's true of every one of these communities. You just have to know where you're looking and the reasons behind why those changes exist. And of course, I can help you suss that stuff out. Next, let's take a look at days on market. Interestingly enough, in many areas, this is higher. It's up. Last year, Santa Clara County, despite, and remember, it's a contradiction because we were getting all these higher sales numbers, all these higher listings, all these things, and yet it's still taking longer to get homes sold. So last year, 20 days in November of 2023, 25 days in November of 2024 for a 25% increase. In San Jose, up 15%, 20 days last year, 23 days this year. In Morgan Hill, it's actually down. It was taking 30 days last year. It's taking 26 days this year. And then in Gilroy, it's up 21%. So 28 days last year, 34 days this year. And just, I know I say this every time, calibrate yourself to the idea that anything above 14 to 18 days is a real number, because agents, when they list a home, will say, we're not going to look at offers until such and such a date, which is usually 2 weeks from the listing date. So you have an artificial 2-week buffer built in where a home won't sell. The reason for that is you want to make sure as many people can see the home as possible so that you can facilitate multiple offers. And that's usually why that's the thing. If I'm listing a home that I absolutely know isn't going to get multiple offers after the first 2 weeks, I may try a different marketing strategy. But in general, that's the way it is. And I think if you're out there for the interest of the seller, then that's really the smart way to go. All right. Now, let's take a look at the past numbers, just looking over our shoulder now. This isn't year over year. This is month over month. And we're going to start with total active listings in Santa Clara County. And look at that drop. We can see it's higher than last year, but if you'll look at the trends, we can see that November of 2022 and November of 2023, we saw drops leading into that. But look, we only saw, aside from 2022, which was a weird year. Remember, 2022 was the year of the crazy loan, right? Well, that's when interest rates went crazy. Early part of 2022. So there's the later year stuff, and interest rates just got worse and worse and worse over the course of 2022. Relatively flat, you'll see in 2023. But man, a big drop from September of 2024 to November of 2024 for total number of active listings. And if we look at the next number, which is the new listings number, we can see it follows on pace, right? So, and if you wanted to try to explain our current situation in a different way, you might try to look for differences between the trends of total active listings versus new listings. But we can see that the total active listings is obviously a function of simply fewer homes being put on the market. It's not an accumulation of listings from prior months. And the fact that we sold more homes that we listed this month is another indicator of that, right? So it doesn't give us any sneaky insights into what might be happening with those numbers. Next, let's take a look at total number of homes sold. So despite the fact that we've got, I love it when these lines cross. That's always a good time to kind of take toll of what's going on. You can see that we sold more homes than we listed, right? And it's actually shown there on the graph. And that visually just very much shows kind of where we've been at. The sales are what really did not drop. If we look at last year, we can see a pretty big sales drop from October to November of 2023. Huge sales drop from October to November of 2022. Again, there's nothing long-term trendy about 2022 because of the crazy interest rate jump, but we can see that it was much more subtle. Buyer interest did not abate as we headed into winter. Buyers stuck in there and kept swinging. So that's really, I think, what that reflects. In terms of homes pending or the willingness of buyers to actually make offers, that also went down compared to last month. I mean, look at, we had that big jump from September to October and then a drop from October to November. If we look at last year, we can see it really just started dropping in August and just kept going down until December of 2023. Not so this time. We started to see that downward trend, and then October came in like a wrecking ball and just changed every perception. But notice we did see that drop back down to almost statistically normal levels in terms of pending homes. That indicates fewer homes sold next month. So we'll see what happens. I would guess that the home sold number is going to drop next month compared to past months, just because the pending home number has dropped so much. But you can see that we had a lot more pendings that didn't close this month. So we'll see where that goes. It may be longer escrows. It could be escrows that failed, but we'll see what happens. My guess is that this sort of steam train of sales will slow next month. All right, next. Santa Clara County list versus sales price. This is also another one where whenever it crosses is an interesting moment, I think. And we can see that between September and October, we had a crossover where average sales price was over average original list price. And that trend continued this month. So we are tending to sell for more than what the home is listed for. Absolutely reflected in the percent over or under asking price, right? Those are all things that we're seeing. In terms of the trend, last year, it was different. Last year, the original list price was higher than the sales price. Same thing in November of 2022, when average list price was quite a bit higher than sales price. And then we sort of merged here in 2024 and have been doing a little bit of a dance in terms of just going above or below each other. What do I see happening? Well, typically, as we head into the new market, we tend to see these lines converge. We saw that a little bit in 2023. We saw that a lot in 2024. Interest rates are now in a reasonable place. The election is over, so there's not a lot of ambiguity, I think, in terms of who's going to be in charge. But I think because of some of the things that are being talked about, there might be a little bit more market concern. So that might end up resulting in more caution. But it wouldn't surprise me if we see confidence in the market continue to be strong, if that makes sense. All right, next. This is percent of asking price over time. And we can see, look at that weird little October bump. Now, back when we were in July and August, I was projecting that we would continue to see a decline. And then after August, things went up. And they really jumped in October and then jumped back down in November. But normally we see this number peaking in April, May, right in that ballpark. April and May of last year, in 2023, we actually saw it sort of plateau around 104.6 and stay there, getting up to 104.8 and 104.9 throughout the whole season, all the way through to September and October. Then it made its decline in winter and came back in January and February. But if you look at this is what I'm talking about in terms of understanding when to pick your time. If we use 2024 as a model, April shows the biggest amount over asking price. I could still continue to believe, everyone likes to say June, right? Well, if you want to get sold in June, if you want your home sold data to show up in June, that means you want to accept an offer in May, right? Because remember, there's a 30-day delay. So if we take this as a good guide, excuse me, and you want to list your home for sale, I would suggest that you do it in February, or I would do early February, late January, early February. And I think given the fact we're going to put 2 weeks on the front of that where no one can buy your house because we want people to see it. And then given how offers usually go from 30 to 45 days, if you want to be part of that peak number, then that's when you want to list your home. So and I think that's a good thing to start thinking about now. What I find is that too many people don't get the market delay that happens in this and come to me right at the month that it's supposed to happen and expect to be able to take advantage of that. And it doesn't always work that way because you've kind of missed the boat by then. You need to be able to read the market and see when you can really take advantage of those peaks for your own benefit. All right. Next, let's take a look at days on market. No big surprises here. Seasonally, we can see that we had a jump in days on market in September. What's interesting is that that's an indicator of a robust market, right? A strong market, a strong seller market. Why? Because for whatever reason, people suddenly came out and started buying up property that had been on the market for longer, right? So that represented an increase, not an increase in September though, an increase in August of folks coming in August and buying a house. It closed escrow the following month, and it was simply homes that have been stuck on the market for longer that were getting sold. So whenever you see an odd jump in days on market, it typically is the indicator of something hot's going on with buyers because suddenly they're buying older properties that have been on the market for longer. And that's typically when we see our new markets being reined in, right? Take a look at January of 2023. That was the peak of days on market. The reason? Tons of buyers came out and bought all these homes that have been on the market for a longer period of time. And then as those get sold off, that number drops and the average number of days a home is on the market drops down to what we see here happening in, say, May or June of 2023. So what do we expect for November? If every single month of November, going back, the following month, this number rose. So I would expect to see that happen again. And again, I would expect it to peak in January since it tends to always peak in January and then drop from there as we head into the real estate market for 2025. Next, now this one is something I've been covering for a while. This is the total number of listings with reduced prices. How many homes have had a price reduction? So in Santa Clara County, last month, there were 26% of the homes on the market had a price reduction. This month, November of 2024, 18%. And that's a year over year 11% drop in the total number of homes with price reductions. These are numbers that indicate to us a very strong market where there's been less need for sellers to reduce the price of their home. Anything below 20% seems like a pretty normal number to me. Anything above seems slightly less normal. Because look at these, we've like San Jose, 24% last month, 19% this month, for a 4% drop from last year. Morgan Hill, 36% of homes last month had a price reduction, only 20% this month, but still a 33% increase from the same time last year. And Gilroy, 22% last month, 21% this month, again, a 25% increase from the same time last year. So that covers all of the core data that we hit every month. I hope that's been useful for you. We've got obviously the news items coming up next, but I wanted to pause for a second. If anyone's got any questions, I can see about a half dozen folks poking around on all the various outlets here, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, X, wherever. Feel free to chime in, ask a question. Happy to answer it for you. This is my own creation. It's a mocha, but I think I've mentioned on this even on this stream before that I think I have finally found my perfect way to make these things, so they're at least as good as anything I'd get from Pete's or Starbucks, without it being not keto, because I'm doing that keto thing. So it doesn't have the sugar. It has milk, but it doesn't have anything in it that should make me a bad boy. All right. In terms of other stuff, let's see here. What do we got? So for this part of the show, what we normally do is just take some articles I've come across, take an opportunity to look at what interest rates are doing, that kind of thing. Let's see here. There's one other I want to show you guys too, which we will do here. We're gonna look at mortgage rates, and we're gonna look at what a real mortgage, if you were shopping for a real honest to gosh mortgage right now, how much would it cost? In fact, let's just go ahead and do it since I'm here. So let's go ahead and look. I'm using Bankrate for this one because its search tool does things a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and take the average sales price in, let's go with San Jose, $1,575,000. $1,575,000. Okay. So if you're coming down with 20%, you got to have that $315,000, 30-year fixed. And let's say you're investing, so that makes it either a secondary or a rental property. And you know what I find is that the interest rates on these two are the same. You're going to get basically the same product package. And notice how your options are limited according to this. Now, of course, whenever I'm talking to folks about getting financing, I always suggest you check at least 5 different outlets. Check with your own personal bank that you've been banking with forever and talk to a human being. Talk to a local credit union. Talk to a loan broker. A loan broker is someone who doesn't lend you the money. They find someone who will lend you the money. So while they frequently represent an additional middleman fee in there, they often have connections to loans that you would never find. And again, you're not making a commitment just by engaging with them. So just reach out to them. Let them know what you're trying to do and see what they can come up with. And then there's also direct lending institutions. So just poke around. I find that historically, my clients tend to get the best deal from credit unions. So make sure that you explore all those options. I find too many people simply call their bank and get a loan. And you can get a pre-approval from almost anyone. That doesn't mean you've committed to them. It just means that as an institution has pre-approved you. So if you needed to get a pre-approval letter for purchasing a home, you don't have to get that loan with that bank. If you find another bank that's going to give you a better deal as you're working through those first few weeks of that offer that you've made on a home, feel free to go with that. But notice how here in this case, we're getting below. Now, I put that my credit rating is very good. My credit rating is pretty good. I'm pretty good about keeping track of that. So I've got that set to that, but it's still over $8,000 a month, which to me is nuts. But it doesn't go up. If you start to go below that, let's say you go to 15%. Whoops. Notice how there's nothing, right? There's one. You can put 15% down, but then your interest rate jumps up to 9%, which costs you $2,000 a month, right? Because I play with these just to see what kind of great deals my folks can potentially get. If you go up to 25%, then you start to see benefits kicking in. So that this geez, that's a crazy rate. 7.3, 6.68, but look at the upfront costs. $21,000, $24,000. So just crazy, you know, and so many people don't realize that your loan is a product. It's as if you went into a supermarket and they have different shelves, loan products. Please make sure to shop around. You can save yourself literally tens of thousands of dollars by shopping smartly when you're getting your loan. So that's why I always encourage folks to do some of this kind of thing, but also recognize that the results you're going to see here aren't from all lenders. Not all lenders participate in these sites that do this stuff. For instance, there's another one that I use, or the one that's actually the one that was my go-to for a really long time. The guys from Smart Asset. And see, they've got different ones. So if this was a personal purchase for you and under advanced, they don't give you options for it to be, you know, it's just single family, or those other two. But anyway, so, and these are obviously better. This is a lower monthly payment, and different lenders, except I think Solidify was on the other one as well. So just keep that in mind. And then overall rates right now, this is where they're at. So not awesome. We actually just had rates reduced. We had the prime lending rate reduced, but mortgage rates went up. And I love this because it is a direct, the mortgage rate you get is far more of an emotional number than it is a math number. It's linked to the 10-year treasury. It's not linked to whatever is happening with the prime rate, although the prime rate obviously affects other things that then affect the 10-year treasury. But you'll also find no change in the 10-year treasury, no change in prime lending rate, or the prime lending rate goes down. And for some period of time after that happens, lending rates go up because so much of it is based on the feelings of some of these institutions. All right, so the top 10 counties with the highest home flipping profit. Now, I'll be honest, most of my clients that are investors are buy and hold people. They're not flippers. I had way more flippers in the early 2000s than I do today. So in fact, I don't think I have a single client who's a regular client that does flipping. But I thought this was interesting because you would think, in terms of how much money you're going to make on a flip, you would think places like San Francisco and San Jose would be amazing, right? No. So they're up there. But notice California doesn't appear on this list till number 6. The first one is Queen Anne's County, Maryland, where the average gross profit is $373,000. Wasatch County, Utah. I don't know what county I was in, but I was in Utah. I did the whole north-south Utah thing from Salt Lake City all the way down south to right at the border with Arizona. But $351,000. Pitkin County, Colorado, $350,000. Illinois. But here's the thing, and I'm sure one reason why San Francisco is number 6 and San Mateo is number 10, getting stuff done, getting permits, making things happen in here in California, and particularly in San Francisco, is ridiculously hard. And I'll bet some of what eats up those profits is the fees that you have to pay to be in San Francisco County. From the standpoint of, I wouldn't do a flip in San Francisco County for this reason, linked with the knowledge I have of how annoying it is to do things in San Francisco. Don't know these areas, But I'll tell you what, Maryland, I don't know, how hard is it to get things done in Maryland? How in Utah? Utah seems to me like a very property rights friendly place that doesn't have a lot of barriers between you and getting things done with your property. I could be completely wrong. If I've got a listener out there from this county in Utah, feel free to reach out. But I thought that was interesting. And Utah is absolutely close enough that I would do this. I realize it's way over there, but I would absolutely do this. Colorado, I have friends who live in Colorado and some investors who live in Colorado. And I get mixed reports from them on how much of a pain in the butt it is to deal with the county folks and the city folks. But I just thought I'd share that one because I thought it was interesting. Next, this is rental reports. Minimum wage earners need to work extended hours while rents continue to fall. The thing I really wanted to call out here was the first point. November 2024 marks the 16th month of year-over-year rent decline in a row for 0 to 2 bedroom properties. Asking rents dipped by $19 or 1.1% year over year. Now, why do I want to point that out? Because this goes beyond just what, and a national average doesn't do anything, right? I mean, it's a national average, but the real money comes in understanding what's happening in your local market. The thing that I'm trying to share here is what you can extract as a general rule that applies everywhere. And what is the general rule that applies everywhere? Studios to 2 bedrooms, least desirable, right? It is the most like an apartment, and who knows, it may be a condo, it may be a townhome, whatever. But if you are looking to make an investment in real estate in a property that has the highest probability of keeping your tenant and keeping them at a good rent level, you don't want to do 2 bedrooms or less. There are people who, in fact, I don't know, I have over 300 people currently with running home searches on my search tool that I provide at my website at soldbyrobert.com. I get little reports. I get little summaries of what did they look at? What did they like? What did they click the heart on that one? Did they click the trash can on that? What interaction did they have with those properties? I cannot think of someone who has a search running right now of the 300 and plus active buyers. And by active, I mean they're checking the results every week. When results come up, they check them. I cannot think of one of them that has less than 3 bedrooms as the search criteria. Now, I have searches for this, and the reason I have a search for that is because if a home comes up that has 2 bedrooms, but it's on a slightly larger lot, it's an older home, you can give yourself an amazing built-in boost in value by adding a bedroom to a house like that. And that's not as hard as you might think it is. In Santa Clara County, the trend is that things get more complicated when you add a bathroom, not when you add a bedroom. Now, granted, if I find a home that's got 2 bedrooms, it's probably only got 1 bathroom, or at most 1.5. So you would likely have to make it as profitable as possible. And again, that's math. If you know that it needs to have 2 bedrooms, and if it does, it'll likely sell faster and make you an extra $60,000. Well, you know what? That might make it worth it. And you can see that just by breaking up the neighborhood, figuring out what has sold, and seeing what 2 bedrooms have been going for versus 2-and-1s or 2-and-2s, that type of stuff. So that's kind of why I wanted to share this one with you, because I think from that you can extract a pretty amazing universal truth, which is always be wary of the 2 bedrooms or less, unless you're specifically looking at that so that you can find a property that has enough room and enough available space to add what would make it worth so much more. Because when you look at what the price difference is between, say, a 2 bedroom and a 3 bedroom, it absolutely would cover the addition of a bedroom in most cases. So the black line represents the rent over year change, which is the percent. The red represents the rent amount, which is between right now about $1,700. But you can see now it's in decline. That's really all this is sharing with you, but it's an interesting thing to observe. Now, mixed signals on new construction activity in November. For those of you who've been around a while, you know that in past months we've seen lots and lots of multifamily construction. For those of you who live in Silicon Valley, you know that over the last 7 years or so, we've built a ton of multifamily, including those crazy giant apartment complexes right along the 85 freeway, right along the northern edge of the 85 freeway in South San Jose. This sort of laments the idea that we've got fewer multifamily, but honestly, I don't think what the market needs right now is tons more multifamily. I think these numbers are far more balanced, and we need to focus more on single family residential homes in that smaller size, in the sub 2,000 square foot size, and stop leaning into these much bigger homes. Now, what you find in California and Silicon Valley particularly is builders build the bigger homes because there's more profits there. There are so many fees, so many county, state, and city things that make it much more expensive to build property that the only way to recoup is to end up building more luxury homes, because you need to make it up somewhere. If all of these local political organizations would just get the hell out of the way, roll back fees to what they were in, say, 2000, we would be addressing our housing problems within 3 years, and maybe even faster than that, because suddenly it becomes profitable to do a quick entry-level home that isn't categorized as luxury. Anyway, number of units permitted for construction rose to 1.5 million, an increase of 6.1% over October. Of course, comparing month to month again is dumb. As we head in more into 2020, into the winter, we would expect to see a decline in stuff as we head into winter. It's back almost up to the same level as in November of 2023. The number of housing units started in November fell compared to October. Of course they did, because November is a further month into winter, so you tend to not want to do that stuff in the winter, and a 14.6% reduction from November of last year. So that's the more relevant number. Compare November to November, and it's a 14.6% drop. The relative softness of the multifamily segment is most pronounced in starts, where the number of units started in buildings of 5 or more units dropped 24.1% month over month and 28.8% year over year. The buildings, we're seeing a bigger representation of single family residentials, which is A-okay with me. We can see that we're above whatever the magic line here is of single family starts. That's this guy right here. But multifamily is still up there, but look at how big it was in 2021. I mean, this is back when multifamily is the only thing. And for some reason, people think that to solve the housing crisis, quote unquote, it's got to be about multifamily housing. And I get that the utility of people per square foot is better in multifamily. But if you want stable housing and you want lots of people in it and you want lots of people staying in it, just build reasonably priced homes. Weekly housing trends. I like to bring this up to sort of compare it to what we're seeing locally, because remember, these are national numbers. The median list price of a home was down 1.2%. The list price in our markets was up 0.5%. So there's if you have a zero and you have a bubble of 1% in both directions, we're kind of within the bubble. New listings up 7.9%. New listings for us was up 7% for the county. So we're kind of on par, right? But if you look at San Jose, we're up 17%. And if you look at Morgan Hill, we're down 23%. And if you look at Gilroy, we're down 26%. I like to go with larger sample size down, because larger sample size is more reliable in terms of making estimations. But San Jose being at 17% is a pretty big deal, almost 10% higher than the national average. Total number of active listings, we're nowhere near this number. Now, as some of you know, I track a lot of other markets. I track Austin. I track Carson City, the Carson Valley area. I track Phoenix. Florida is an example. Huge jumps in active listings. And in terms of days on market, it's taking 7 days longer to sell a home. For us, the number went down. So there you go. That's just a few of the ways that our local market is different from the national numbers. Mortgage rates jump higher as markets prepared for FOMC outcome. The Freddie Mac rate for a 30-year mortgage moved 12 basis points higher this week to 6.72 as markets prepared for Wednesday's Fed meeting. Yeah, we already know the 23.4. But the Fed did cut interest rates by by 25 basis points, which means a quarter of a point. So 25 basis points equals 0.25 in the actual interest rate. So dropping it by a quarter of a percent. But despite that, we saw mortgage rates go up. So the Fed cut rates, but mortgage rates jumped. It's the psychology of it. It's more about how people feel. Then I wanted to show folks my site. This is the Sold by Robert site that I suggested you visit. There's my ugly mug right there. You can contact me. The phone number is right here, or you can schedule a consultation using an online tool. Actually pick a time and we'll chat. Or you can reach out to me directly. You can just go up here and contact Robert, and you can send a message directly. If you'd like to listen to the podcast, which I promise is going to kick back up, you can go ahead and visit the webpage here. You can also come here, enter your address, 123 in Naples, Florida. Notice I haven't entered anything. I haven't entered anything other than the address, and it immediately gives me the estimated value. This is from a service called HomeBot AI, and I find them to be far more accurate than most other online tools for estimating home value. And if that's all you're interested in, great. Have a great day. I appreciate you coming by my site to try this out. If not, if you would like to unlock all of these other tools and get this updated monthly, so you get an email every month, where you can track what's going on with your mortgage, how much interest you've paid, how much you've paid toward principal, how much you could save doing various different things, interest rates. If you were to refinance, what would it represent a good thing for you or a bad thing for you, given what you've told it about your current mortgage? And this is all linked with a local lender. So if you want to ask any questions about any of this great stuff, I've created a partnership with a local lender so that you can start talking to them directly. So feel free to head on over to soldbyrobert.com and take advantage of that. And then if you want to go check out the podcast page, there we go. That's me. And there's a variety of ways. Yeah, so it's been April. April 5th was when I did the last show. And I promise before the new year, there will be another show. I don't know if I wanted to say that out loud, but anyway, but we're going to get back into a tempo here of doing it on a regular basis. Finally, for those of you who have any questions at this point, we can look at some other stuff. I thought we'd close with just the ReVenture app, sort of giving us an idea. Average home values, in Morgan Hill is 1.3 million, 95120 is 2.2 million. Just all of these zip codes, and we can see San Jose makes up a very large area. But super cool tools here. Home value growth year over year, 3.4%, 9.7%. So if you're someone who wants to buy in an area where you're only interested in home value growth, I mean, this is a great tool to lean into for that. Home value growth over 5 years, 43.1 here in Morgan Hill, San Martin 40.9, 42.6 in Gilroy. 61% here. This is a neighborhood that I think gets ignored quite a bit. 65% in 95123. One of my favorites recently helped someone buy a home in 95123. 95118. It's been a little longer since the last one, but 55.4. And interestingly enough, Los Gatos has slowed down a bit. It's at 42.8. Yeah, interesting perspectives. So I don't see any specific questions. So we can. We've already looked at the interest rates, so I guess we can call it there. Hey, I do appreciate you folks coming out and spending time with me. I had to find my button so you could see my big, beautiful face. As always, we do this on the third Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. If you have any more questions, you're watching this as a replay, feel free to reach out to me directly. soldbyrobert.com is the website. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about this data. And again, if you have any real estate goals that you'd like to reach, whether immediately or anytime in 2025, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks for spending your valuable time with me, and I look forward to seeing you